And the producer that we're going to taste this wine from is Kapka, which is a producer, and that's their cellar. And they actually are famous for making tawny ports. So there's two types of ports. We have ruby ports, which defines the color. So ruby means red. In fact, the Recioto would be, if someone looked at that, you could say, oh, that might be a port. But tawny is what you have in glass number 6. So tawny is a red wine that has been aged so that it loses its ruby color and eventually becomes what we call tawny. Tawny is a mixture of sort of brown and reddish color. But this wine is so old that it's pretty much brown. It's not tawny anymore. I mean, I don't know if anybody could easily say that was a wine that had red grapes in it. And again, this is a 1941. Anybody? I won't ask if that's anybody's birthday, because that's pretty old. And you all look too young anyway. So this house has a legacy of making great tawny ports. And they are the oldest port wine company that exports their wines. They've been around since 1638. And they have been owned by the same family generations after generations. So we're now up to, I forget how many generations. I don't have the notes. But this is a wine that's unique in that with tawny ports, you can have certain types of tawny ports. You can have a wine just labeled as tawny port, and it might be aged about 7 years. You have certain tawny ports that have an indication of age 20 years, 30, 40, 50, meaning it's an average of about 20 or 10, 20, 30, 40, and 50. But some of their tawny ports are vintage dated, and they call that colheita. So this is a colheita, meaning it's a vintage, and by law it has to be aged a minimum of 7 years in barrels. And those are small barrels. They're not new oak because you don't want oak flavor, but they're small barrels so that you get a lot of ingress of oxygen, which oxidizes the wine and changes the color from ruby to tawny or eventually brown.